Why do we feel it's necessary to yak about bullshit in order to be comfortable?
I don't know. That's a good question.
Welcome back to the channel, everyone. It's I, the Reluctant Gr1ngo, and it is south of the border. And first things first, I must apologize. Yes, I was gone for most of the week. I was extremely ill. And for those of you that have been with me for a while know that I do suffer from a chronic illness, and sometimes it flares up and I got to deal with it. And I tried to come back. I did one live show last week and I'm like, yeah, I'm fine. No problem. And I really wasn't. And I was pushing it and everybody told me I was probably pushing it. And so, yeah, I pushed it. So, I'm better. I feel good. I feel great, actually. And so we're back. We're going to talk about pop culture first. We're going to talk about politics, but just thank you for everybody for just, being patient. And again, just appreciate that so much. And let's get into it. So when I do feel ill and I got a lot of time on my hands, I read a lot. So I like to read, I like to play video games. Those are pretty much the two things that I do. And it seems that there are two trains that are running right now when it comes to pop culture. It's the hype train, and then there's the pray to fail train. And it seems like the pray to fail train is really outpacing the hype train of positivity when it comes around two movies. One of them, the Fantastic Four, the other one, Superman. Again, competing Marvel DC films, both with a lot riding on them. Let's not lie to each other. There's a lot riding on the Superman film for Warner Brothers, for James Gunn and DC. It's the reboot of the DC universe. And there's a lot riding on the Fantastic Four. Now, we can go back and talk about Thunderbolts and how it did not perform at the box office as well as probably Disney would like or Marvel would have liked. But it's still an awesome film. It's still a classic, I think, in my mind. I loved it. I can't wait to see it again. But it didn't perform well. And there's probably a bunch of different reasons why it probably didn't perform well. It could have been marketing. Maybe the marketing wasn't correct. Maybe the marketing didn't hit a nerve. Maybe people just weren't familiar with the characters and just didn't really want to spend their money on that and kind of risk it. Maybe Marvel just hasn't had a lot of goodwill in the past with some of the films that they've put out, Disney included. Now, when you think about Marvel, you think about Disney. So when Snow White comes out, that's going to have a negative effect on Marvel films because it's the same company. So you could do a whole post-mortem on why the Thunderbolts didn't do well, but it's come and gone now. It's pretty much the next time you'll see that, it'll be on streaming on Disney+. Now we have to wait for these next two superhero films. Now, of course, Disney has a hit on its hand right now with Lilo and Stitch, and we did a review on that, and it was awesome. I loved it. I thought it was great. Saw it the day it came out down here. It was a blast. I thought that, wow, that's how you do a live. So Disney's going to continue to do live action films as long as they follow that formula. It'll be okay. But a lot of articles have come out about Superman and the Fantastic Four, especially now that there's been some test screenings. And when I say test screenings, some people just kind of maybe don't know what that means. A test screening is maybe 15 people. If it's a sort of like what I guess what you call a public test screening. A lot of test screenings are done with just the employees of the company. They'll send out an email. Hey, Disney employees, you want to go to a test screening? They won't tell you what the movie is, but you're like, yeah, sure. To sort of, get a good sample. But it's really the sample size is 15 people probably at best. And a couple people have spoken out. There's like one or two people that have spoken out and quote unquote insiders, which we're going to get to that. And so as I'm reading through all this stuff, particularly on websites like WDW Pro or That Park Place or World of Real and stuff like that, you see all the videos from places like Neurotic and Drinker and things like that. And there's a lot of stuff that's kind of makes sense. There's a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. And it seems like the negative spin being put on things is quite interesting. So I'd like to get into it. Not so much as I'd like to tell you, here's how I feel. I'm excited about seeing Superman. I've heard the good and the bad about all the crap about it that's out there. I haven't seen the film. I just know that I'm really excited to see Superman, so I'm going to go see Superman. I'm really excited to see the Fantastic Four. I mean, the first 3 times I went to see the Fantastic Four, yeah, they were disappointing. So hopefully this fourth one, they get it right. Do I know that they're going to get it right? I have not seen the film, so I can't tell you it's going to be a good or a bad film. Anybody who's out there saying this film's in trouble, this film's going to be bad, they don't know what they're talking about because they haven't seen the film. Even if they end up being right in the end, even if you go and see the film, it's like, wow, that film wasn't good. You can't really make that a judgment right now, and that's the way I feel. And I think some of the things that we see in the media, or the internet media, or the what I call the fail train media, because there's so many outlets out there, and they even couch it like, oh, I want this film to succeed, but here's all the reasons why it won't. Well, no, you really don't want that film to succeed because you're just talking negatively about it. And that's fine. Everybody has a right to their opinion. I'm not saying it, but I think you got to dig into the details. If you really, really care about whether the film is successful or not, you dig into the details. So we're going to dig into some of the details. And we're going to start out with the first article that I saw. All right. And here we go. From That Park Place, and I know they have a YouTube channel, WDW Pro or whatever it is, right? And this is written by Marvin Montanaro, who is their editor-in-chief. Now, this is the editor-in-chief of this website. Claims to have 20 years experience in this industry, although it never tells you where they had that experience, just 20 years. Basically, they've been commenting on movies for 20 years. Okay, cool. I guess that makes you the man. That's fine. So rumor. So we already start out with rumor. So this is not really an article. An editor-in-chief would be writing an article, a journalistic article. You don't start it out with rumor. Right? Superman movie cut by 30 minutes. Editor fired and tone overhauled after test screening fallout. Okay. Well, there's a lot in that. Can they back up that headline? Right now, first off, we're gonna go through this article. But realize this entire article is nothing original. This gentleman here who wrote this, Marvin Montanaro, basically read this article from the World of Real. And if you read this article, it's the exact same thing. So it's an echo chamber. It's the exact same thing. Basically, he rewrites the article from World of Real, puts it in his own name, and then puts it out as if he did something in the world of journalism. Usually we call that just copying, but okay. But anyways, so here we go. Let's get into this and let's find out exactly how real this stuff is. All right. And remember, you're dealing with a former English teacher and creative writer teacher, so I know what I'm talking about. Viewer response to a recent Superman test screening may have led to sweeping changes for the upcoming James Gunn movie. Sweeping changes. We're a month out, folks. There's no sweeping changes, first off. Viewer response. 1 viewer, 2 viewers, 10 viewers. Again, we don't know. We're not given facts in this journalistic article. According to a report from World of Real, and of course, if you go back again, if you go and read that report, it's basically they took that report and slapped their own name on it and said, journalism. Major last-minute changes have rocked James Gunn's Superman reboot. Oh, that's a pretty dramatic line. Rocked it. Rocked it. All right. Including the removal of nearly 25 to 30 minutes of footage. You mean they edited it? They usually edit. Movies are usually edited. Usually, if you work on a movie or know anything about movie production, you shoot probably 4 or 5 hours worth of footage and you edit it down and then you shuffle things around. The replacement of an editor, that happens. Yes, people get replaced all the time. I used to hire and fire people all the time. And the addition of a second composer. Okay, cool. So far, I'm like, I don't see the world-changing, world-rocking issues here. Changing an editor doesn't really mean much, really, in the great scheme of things, of a movie. Okay, because you have everybody else sitting in the editor booth with them. These changes reportedly stem from mixed Superman. See, they reportedly stem from, they don't stem from, they reportedly stem from mixed Superman test screening reactions, prompting executives to rework the film in a bid to avoid yet another box office embarrassment for the DC brand. Again, this is all speculation so far. Reboot turmoil. A reboot in turmoil? Turmoil, such an interesting word to use there. Behind the scenes, tensions are reportedly running high. There's that word again, reportedly. Reported by who? Warner Brothers Discovery CEO David Zaslav, okay, along with DC Studios co-heads James Gunn and Peter Safran, are said to be deeply involved in the final stages of post-production. Why wouldn't they? That line is meant to elicit like they're panicking. Why wouldn't they? It's Superman. It's their tentpole film. It's the film that they're banking a lot of money on and their reputation for DC going forward. Why wouldn't they be involved? I would be more concerned if they were like not involved. That would be concerning. Like if the line was Discovery CEO David Zaslav couldn't give a shit about Superman. Like then you'd be like, oh, that's not good. So they care and they're going to care about the film. All right, so deeply involved in the film, scrutinizing every frame to avoid the kind of misfires that tanked The Flash, Shazam 2, Wonder Woman 1984, Aquaman and Lost Kingdom, Black Adam, Blue Beetle, and so on. Yes, none of those are really good movies. I get that. But shouldn't they scrutinize every frame? Isn't that their job? So basically they're doing their job. Okay, so a reboot in turmoil, but the main idea of this whole paragraph that the editor-in-chief of That Park Place wrote is that they're doing their job. Again, I'm trying to see where the panic is coming from. They're doing their job. Okay. Sources claim, again, and I don't care what media, when I don't get a real source, when it's an anonymous source, sources claim, now the source could be the caterer. Someone could have talked to the guy who's putting the mustard on the hot dogs. Somebody could have talked to the security guard who's helping park the cars. Like, we don't know what source this is, right? Sources claim Gunn's original cut leaned more heavily on humor. You don't need a source for that. If you've ever seen anything James Gunn's ever done, it leans heavily on humor. A creative decision that apparently apparently, not reportedly, apparently, all right? Journalism. This is creative writing, folks. This isn't journalism. Didn't land with early audiences or executives. There's a lot of films that don't get great test scores coming out of test screenings. There's really nothing really about that. They're unfinished. They don't have proper CGI built in. It's just the way it is. In response, multiple comedic beats were cut from the film entirely, bringing down both the tone and the runtime. Okay. What was once a more lighthearted take is now said to be significantly leaner and more serious in presentation. Okay. And again, we're not really sure where that comes from because we're not given a source. Editor quietly replaced, scenes restructured. Okay. Again, I've told you many, many occasions I've fired and hired and fired and hired. You don't fire people loudly. I never was like in the middle of the office or the middle of the floor, middle of anywhere with all the employees around screaming, "I'm firing this person." That's not how you fire people. So someone needed to be removed or fired for whatever reason it might be that we're not given a reason. You do it quietly because you're legally obligated to do that. Otherwise, you are causing an unsafe work environment for people. There's rules around firing, right? You can't just announce it loudly to the world like you're celebrating a touchdown. That's not how that works. But apparently, according to the editor-in-chief of That Park Place, they did it quietly, so that must mean something. You mean they had tact, they were reasonable, they were appropriate, they were polite about it, they had manners, they were just doing things apropos? Okay. But apparently there's the turmoil. One of the more surprising developments is that a key editor was quietly removed. Why? People get removed all the time from projects. All the time. All the time. All the time. You cannot point to one movie where someone wasn't removed for some reason or another. Partway through post-production. Okay. Maybe they did something totally unrelated to the production that got them fired. Maybe they said something, did something, crossed some sort of policy, violated some sort of trust, violated some sort of confidentiality agreement, did something to get fired. We don't know, but apparently we're just going to assume that it's because they suck at editing Superman. Okay. But again, this is not journalism. This is creative writing, folks. This prompted a structural shakeup in the story. How do you know? You don't know. You've not seen the film. With scenes reportedly, there's a word, reportedly being shuffled and some minor additions inserted during recent reshoots. That's what you do during reshoots. You shuffle scenes around and you make additions and you make subtractions. But again, we're turning it all into panic. Now, I'm not saying Superman 2025 is going to be great. That's not my point of my commentary here. My point of my commentary here is that the fail machine, the fail train is at full speed ahead because, let's face it, YouTube channels make more and get more clicks and get more views when something is talked negatively about than it is positively. That's just the way it is. That's just the nature of this medium. But here we go. And again, like I said, if you wanted to read this article, all you had to do was read the original article where all this information was copied and pasted into this one. And then this person just said, yeah, I'm the editor-in-chief of this and I wrote it. Well, you didn't write it. You read something and rewrote it. Okay. While insiders, what insiders? Again, we're not told what insiders there are. Like I said, it could be the security guard on the parking lot. Described this as a slight tweak. Again, now, wait a minute. So if somebody was an insider and you truly believed that they were a true insider and they described it as a slight tweak, just a few sentences ago, you just said being shuffled. Story, scenes reported, structural shakeup. That doesn't seem like so what is it? What are we doing here? Is it a structural shakeup or are you just ignoring your insider where it says slight tweak? The fact that changes are still being made weeks before the final cut suggests deeper creative uncertainty. Suggests. How do you know it suggests? You don't know. Do you know what James Gunn is thinking? What the Warner Brothers is thinking? Do you know anything? No, but here we go. Creative writing, not journalism. Creative writing. Musical chairs for the score. In another eyebrow-raising move, Warner Brothers also brought in a second composer. Now listen, when the trailer first hit months ago, one of the biggest complaints I heard from everybody out there on the hate train was, oh, I don't like the music. I don't like the way they did the music. Now they brought in a new composer to maybe tweak the music, and now it's like, oh, that must mean the music is bad. Well, you already said you didn't like the music. Now you're complaining. Like, you can't please these people. You can't please these people because they need the hate train to go. They need the hate train, so there you go. Brought in a second composer to help reshape the score. Yeah, they do that all the time. John Williams has had people come in and help reshape his score before, of all people. So this kind of midstream adjustment typically reflects this kind of midstream adjustment typically reflects, and again, how does this person know this typically reflects? Have they ever produced a film? Tonal concerns at the executive level. So now they're making assumptions about what the executives at Warner Brothers thinks based on nothing. Basically, someone saying, hey, you know what? We thought that song would work, but it doesn't work. You know, in our head, when we were writing, we thought this is great. But then when we actually put it on paper and put it in practice, it's like, no, it doesn't work. We got to come up with something different. That happens. I paint. I like to paint. In my head, I have got a painting and I go and I try to paint it. Guess what? When it finally comes out, it just doesn't work. It doesn't look like this. That's art, folks. That's art. And reinforces the narrative that the film's direction has been in flux even deep. Reinforces what narrative? The narrative that you've been spewing for months? Narratives are always in flux. People are writing films as they go. Quentin Tarantino writes as he goes. He'll have a script and things just change. That's the way it is. Scripts change. That's why they have a writer on the set. Things change. So again, creative writing meant to make you think that this is the disaster of all disasters, that the iceberg is headed for the Titanic. One insider described the entire process as a slight course correction, but the amount of behind the scenes overhaul could indicate. But you don't know how do they know what amount of overhaul there is? They have no idea. They're just, again, guessing and being very, very subjective and trying to connect dots they have no right to connect. But again, the two insiders that they are quoting are saying, no, this is just minor changes. And they're taking it wildly into the other direction where it's, structural shakeup. what the final runtime tells us. It tells us there's a runtime. That's what before I even read this paragraph, what the final runtime tells us. It tells us what the runtime is. It tells us how long the movie is. That's all it does. The film's official runtime was revealed earlier this week, clocking in well below what many fans expected for. I have did anybody have an expectation for how long this film should be? I didn't. I didn't see any articles out there with a poll from fans saying 75% of fans expect the Superman movie to be 3 hours long. I haven't seen that poll. Is that poll out there? Let me know. While early cuts were said to stretch well over 2.5 hours, while earlier were said to have stretched, the final version now runs significantly shorter, right around 2 hours. I mean, the time most movies are pretty much running at 2 hours. This led many to believe, again, who? WB is hoping to keep the pace tight and the reviews stronger. Let's read that sentence again, because that's the most stupid sentence I've ever read in my life. This led many to believe that Warner Brothers is hoping to keep the pace tight. What studio doesn't want to keep the pace of their action film tight? No shit. And reviews stronger. Did Warner Brothers not want strong reviews in the first place? Did they go into this film thinking, we don't want strong reviews? And then they change their mind, yes, we want strong reviews. So that Park Place, here we go. The hate train is a-going. And this keeps going. I mean, this is amazing, this creative writing. The final Superman test screening is reportedly happening this week. Reportedly, there's that word, so you don't know. And whether these sweeping changes have made a difference remains to be seen. Sweeping changes. We don't know what those changes were, but he's going to call them sweeping. For now, insiders say there's a tad more confidence. Again, who are these insiders? From studio heads that Superman will deliver the clean slate DC desperately needs. Okay. Make or break moment for Gunn's DCU. Yeah, no kidding. It's his first major film in the DC universe. Of course it's make or break. That's not news. That's not like, you're not breaking news there. You're not breaking news, so I'm not even going to read that one. If Superman fails to soar, the entire future of the DCU may come crashing down before it even gets off the ground. Yeah. Yeah, if it doesn't succeed, they might rethink the whole thing and go, you know what, this isn't worth it. That's business. That's how any business is with any launch of any product, anywhere, at any manufacturing. It's just, so the hype train, the hate train is going, looking for the failure of this film. And that's really what it is. People are out there hoping this film fails because their vested interest is to be able to say it, oh, I told you so, and then say, oh, I can make videos on how it failed, and then, oh, I can make videos and say, you didn't listen to us, we told you it was going to happen. And that's how this happens. That's what this is. And the fact is, maybe 30 people have seen, outside of James Gunn and the executives at Warner Brothers, maybe 30 people have seen this film, and maybe one of them has spoken, two have spoken, whatever. And if that's how you want to base your view of this film on, and that's what you're going to let influence you, is this creative writing, this fiction, and that's what it is. This is fiction. Go ahead. That's your choice, man. But it's not just Superman. It's not just Superman. And again, we've got another That Park Place article written Marvin Montanaro, who basically read this article from comicbookmovie.com and then took all the salient points from that and put it in here. I mean, he even says it, that's where it got from, shared details. Recent Fantastic Four test screenings reportedly mid, with the CGI incomplete and character work lacking. Well, I think if I saw a movie that was supposed to be heavily laden and reliant on CGI, but the movie wasn't finished yet, I'd be like, Wouldn't anybody? But again, it's Marvel, but there's a core group of people who are just interested in hating on it. That's fine. You can hate what you want. I don't care. But at least be honest about your hate. All right? You don't want this film to succeed. Yes, this film is heavily laden with the Invisible Woman. She's going to have the biggest part out of all the Fantastic Four in this. And that's going to bother somebody, and it's already brought up the MCU. I get it. I'm not crazy about the MCU myself. Wasn't crazy about the Marvels. Wasn't crazy about Black Widow. Wasn't crazy about some of those films. But it is what it is. That's what you're going to get, right? So here we go. Marvel Studios may have a problem on its hands. And there we go. The qualifying words. They may have a problem. No, I'm not sure they have a problem. See, if you're a journalist, you either have it or you don't have it. If you're not a journalist and you're a creative writer, you say, I may have. According to multiple sources that won't be named here, the most recent test screenings of the Fantastic Four First Steps were held earlier this week in Los Angeles, okay? And the reactions are mixed. I mean, there's some good, so some people really liked the movie and some people didn't. You mean like life? That's life. Okay. All right, I just want to make sure we get there. Though it's still in post-production phase, initial viewer feedback suggests, is that word, suggests, the reboot might not be the triumphant return for Marvel's first family that Kevin Feige was hoping for. It might not be. It suggests, it's, again, all the qualifying words of creative writing. Industry scooper Jeff Snyder in the Snyder shared details from a source. So we've got a source. So we've got an article written off of a source that's all anonymous. Cool. Who attended the screening. It could have been the guy selling popcorn for the people going into the screening. Describing the film as mid and meh, clarifying that it was not that bad, but not that good either. It wasn't finished. How could it be that good either? How could it be that bad? They've already clearly established the film was not finished. You saw an unfinished product. But we're going to go with it. Perhaps more concerning are criticisms about weak character development and bad CGI. Again, you already started out the article with saying the CGI was not complete. Of course, there's going to be criticisms about the CGI not being complete. The latter of which, in coming weeks, is visual effects are finalized. All right, cool. Weak character development, again, in the eye of the beholder. Again, I have not seen that, so I can't tell you. In general, quote, and I'm not sure where this comes from. Snyder apparently knows this. In general, Marvel doesn't do public test screenings unless they're worried. Again, I'm not sure how you're reading their minds, but okay. That was the case with the Eternals, the Marvels, Quantumania, and Brave New World. They do test screenings for all their films, folks. If you work for Disney, you know you get the email all the time, hey, you want to come to a test screening? You're just not sure what film you're going to see. You could see a Marvel film, you could see a Disney film, you could see a Star Wars film. They just don't tell you. Say, hey, while Snyder initially reported that Marvel was high on the project internally, why wouldn't they be? Another unnamed source, now they're just outright coming out and telling you, unnamed source reportedly described the film as a mess and a huge problem movie. Who's this unnamed source? Right? They're going to come out and badmouth the film? Why? Echoing language that was once used to describe the Marvels before its disastrous release. Okay, so now the Fantastic Four is the Marvels. Just so you know, that's where we're going. That's what we want. That's what these people want you to think. The Fantastic Four is the Marvels. Even though we've seen the trailer, and the trailer looked really cool, and when we saw the Marvels trailer, we kind of knew, that don't look good. Don't think for yourself. Silver Surfer. Not all reactions were negative, however. Portrayal of Galactus will go over well with audiences, calling that a promising sign. The appearance of Galactus apparently lifts the film in its latter half. Why wouldn't it? Again, you need someone to tell you that. Like, I could have told you from the trailer, when Galactus shows up, the film's going to hit another gear. Again, it's called logic and thinking, folks. A sentiment echoed by well-known test screening insider, viewer anon. Anonymous viewer. Well-known. And there's their little picture from Twitter there, smoking a cigarette and shit. So, all right. The first act is shaky, but it gets better once Galactus shows up. Okay. The overall response is okay, but not a big sample size. Yeah, you have like 15 people watching the film. A couple people have said that the first act's shaky, but it gets better once Galactus shows up. Again, you don't need to see the film right now to understand that, yes, when the big bad villain shows up, things get interesting. It's a very unfinished version with only 25% of visual effects completed. Gee, I wonder why it was when you're watching a film that's heavily reliant on visual effects, and all of a sudden, do you see that 25%, 75% of those visual effects are not completed? Yeah, it's going to look choppy. It's going to look but we're going to run with that. The film's in trouble. Chaos, turmoil, burn Marvel Studios to the ground. While the film isn't eliciting the kind of extreme reactions being reported from Superman test screenings, what extreme reactions? We just read it. There were no extreme reactions. Creative writing. The fact that Marvel felt the need to hold a public test run suggests some internal anxiety. There we go. It suggests. It doesn't suggest anything. It just means Marvel wanted to hold a test screening for whatever their reasons were. And again, they could be good or bad. Guess what? We don't know that, and neither do these people. The studio hasn't had a runaway hit since Deadpool and Wolverine. Okay. Bob Iger is reportedly disappointed. These guys talk to Bob Iger. They have some pretty good access. That's some pretty good access that they talk to Bob Iger. The Fantastic Four was expected to anchor the brand moving forward alongside the upcoming X-Men reboot. Yes, it's expected to anchor the brand. It's their next tentpole film. Thank you. Again, there is no news here. There is absolutely zero news, all subjective, all rumor, all speculation to get you to hate the film before it even comes out so they can write articles later saying, we told you so. And of course, that Park Place, basically what they do is they go to other places that write articles, they copy and paste, and again, you can just go through here, and it's the same thing. My source called it both mid and meh. Not that bad, not that bad, not that good. Again, it just keeps going. It's the same thing, folks. It's the echo chamber of hate. That's all it is. It's the echo chamber of hate. And I've ripped on Marvel films, and I've ripped on Warner Brothers films and DC films, and I've ripped on Disney films for not being good, but I ripped on them after seeing them. That's the difference between, I guess, me and my content and this content, but I like to tell you what I think after I've seen it. You know, it's like, I don't know how else to tell you. I can't tell you a movie's going to be good or bad if I haven't seen it. And I can't rely on rumors and speculation, innuendo of people who have no clue that just want to write something that makes it sound like they do, or anonymous sources. I never liked anonymous sources, but it's all creative writing. That's all this is creative writing. Ignore it. And if you decide to go see the film because you want to see the film and you like it, great. That's awesome. If you go see the film and you don't like it, I'm sorry you saw something you didn't like. That's how this should work, right? But the influence on it's basically people trying to influence because they don't like the direction of certain stuff. Yes, Vanessa Kirby's Invisible Woman, and yes, the female Silver Surfer, and I will say this again, which is not a gender swap, because that character actually exists in the comics. Shalabal is an actual character. It's not like they came up and said, we're going to take the Silver Surfer, let's make her a woman. That's not what they did. We're going to have this one. Why? Probably because the Silver Surfer in this film is going to die, and they're going to bring back Norrin Rad for the Secret Wars and Doomsday projects. It's just a guess. But yes, the Invisible Woman is going to have a baby, going to have Franklin Richards. We all know that. She's going to play a huge role because Franklin's going to play a huge role going forward because he does in the comic books. And therefore, so wouldn't his mother. And is Reed Richards going to be sidelined? He's not going to be the main focal point. He's going to have a lot to do, but he's not going to be the main focal point. It is what it is. It's the Fantastic Four, folks. The Invisible Woman's been around for a while, and now we're going to complain. We're like, I'm a Fantastic Four fan, unless the Invisible Woman has something to do. Okay. Again, the hate train is what they want. So I had fun reading all that stuff. And going, you know, let's stop right there. Let's figure out what's actually being said. Let's figure out where they're getting their information, which is nowhere. They're just pulling it out of the air. Out of the air from unnamed sources. Unnamed sources. The same people who, you know, told you in 2016 that Donald Trump was, you know, a Russian agent. Unnamed sources. and made it up. Or they take one person's real opinion and they make it sound like that's the whole narrative for the film. Anyways. All right. Well, that's our pop culture rundown. So, folks, listen, I'm excited to see Superman, and I'm going to go see Superman. I'm hopefully going to have a blast seeing Superman. I'm excited to see the Fantastic Four. Can't wait to see the Fantastic Four, and I'm going to have a blast watching the Fantastic Four, I hope. I hope they're both great films, and I could give a shit what the hate train out there wants to try to influence me on whether I like it or not. They tried to do that with the Thunderbolts. Friggin' love the Thunderbolts. They tried to do that with Mission Impossible. I really liked. There are certain parts of Mission Impossible I loved, thought they were amazing. All right, and the overall film, thought it was great. Lilo and Stitch. Oh, it's another Disney remake. It's another live action remake. And now, you remember The Little Mermaid? Yeah, that sucked. I didn't like The Little Mermaid. But I went and saw Lilo and Stitch. And it's like, wow, this is fun. Don't let them influence you. Anyways, with that, it's time to switch over to politics. And there's plenty to talk about, folks. Plenty to talk about. I don't even know where to begin. Oh, you know what? Let's start with the great state of Texas. My home, the great state of Texas. Some of you are going to love this. Some of you are going to be like, not so happy. But classrooms into closets. Good. During Pride Month, nonetheless. By the way, what happened to Pride Month? It used to be like you had to go everywhere and Pride Month was being advertised everywhere. I used to work for Apple. Pride Month was like a friggin' month of like reverent religious fervor in Apple. You know? We got our rainbow watch bands and our rainbow shirts and our rainbow buttons and our rainbow decals and our rainbows. Now it's like, I think if you go to apple.com, there's no rainbows. I wonder what happened. I wonder. Personally, I think celebrating in my religion, which is Christianity, pride being a sin, I think celebrating that for a month really says a lot to people, for me, my perspective, but it's just me. You know, Memorial Day, you dead people who fought for our freedom, you get one day. And only half the day we're going to pay attention. The other half we're going to be drinking beer and having a barbecue. But if you're a member of the alphabet community, you get a whole month. Not sure how. Not sure why. But Texas has said no more. Classrooms in the closets. LGBTQ student club ban clears Texas legislature. That's right. You will no longer be able to have a club in school, public school, that identifies itself or has characteristics of sexuality in it. Either way. Now, they're just saying this is a ban for the alphabet community. It's a ban on any club that's going to identify its members through sexuality. Texas legislation bill is empowering parents will harm LGBTQ public school students. How? How does it harm it? It's just that we're going to treat you the same way we're going to treat them. They're going to be treated the same way we're going to treat you. How does it harm it? You don't get to have a club where you can all just do whatever you want. Too fucking bad. Go meet at Denny's afterwards. Go to In-N-Out after school. Call yourselves a group of friends. That's what it is. Why do you need a sanctioned club? A wide-ranging education bill, Senate Bill 12, cleared its final hurdles before heading to Governor Greg Abbott's desk, who will sign it. After the latest version of legislation, crafted in a conference committee of House and Senate members, advanced from both chambers on Saturday. SB 12 isn't about protecting children or parental rights, said Representative Jessica Gonzalez, a Dallas Democrat who serves as vice chair of the Texas House LGBTQ plus caucus. It's about silencing them. It's about erasing families, banning truth, and turning our classrooms into closets. Really? Silencing them? No one's silencing them. No one said they can't say anything about themselves. No one says you're going to be quiet. Certainly doesn't talk about families. Actually, it does talk about families. I'm sorry. It says that the parents need to be involved in any decision being made concerning their children in school, whether that's concerning their, transitioning or whatnot. That's actually keeping families together, because when you actually take a child and tell them not to talk to their parents, that's dividing and erasing families. Banning truth? What truth? We're not banning truth. We're just saying you can't have a club. And turning our classrooms into closets. Let me guess. This person is a member of the alphabet community. Democrats called particular attention to a portion of the bill banning LGBTQ clubs at public schools. The bill, called the Texas Parents' Bill of Rights by supporters, say student clubs cannot be based on sexual orientation or gender identity. What is wrong with that? Because if you do that, then if you're not a member of that identity or that orientation, are you being discriminated against? Can you have the all-white Christian club? No, because that's racist and discriminatory. Same thing here. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. All right. Public schools cannot provide instruction on sexual orientation or gender identity, the bill says. Fantastic, because that should start in the home. And it should not be something that schools should be focused on. Schools should be focused on reading, writing, history, science, math, that stuff. Take it from a former teacher. The kids need it. They really, really need it. Even more so now than ever. Right? Believe me. As a teacher, all I wanted to do, and when I was teaching history, all I wanted to do was teach history. I didn't want to teach anything else but history. Why? Because the kids needed it. When I was teaching English and grammar and writing, that's all I wanted to teach. In those classrooms, I didn't want to teach anything else because the kids really, really needed it. It was important, more important than anything else. Learning how to read and write is nothing more important, I think, for a student. Now, the measure sparked a tense exchange between Representative Aaron Zwiner, a Driftwood Democrat, and the bill's House sponsor, Rep. Jeff Leach, a Plano Republican. Zwiner asked whether the bill bars students from organizing gay-straight alliance clubs. During the back and forth, Leach said that the bill will not allow gay clubs or straight clubs in schools. Yeah, it's equal. You cannot, can you have a club that says straight white males? No. So you can't have a club that says, lesbian Asians. It's not, you can't do that. It's discriminatory. Quote, we shouldn't be sexualizing our kids in public schools, period. So far, I got no problem with what he's saying. All right. And we shouldn't have clubs based on sex. Awesome. So far, I'm cool with that. I believe that, and that's what this bill does. That doesn't mean students have to hide who they are or that he believes in bullying or discrimination. If a student is struggling with their sexuality or their identity and they want to talk to their friends at school about it or talk to a teacher or talk to a counselor, that would be great. Counselor, psychologist, things like that. Yes, that's healthy to talk to a therapist if you're struggling with some emotional issues based on whatever it might be. That's awesome. How responsible is that? Yes, let's talk to a therapist, please. If they have a parent's consent, yes, they need a parent's consent. Why? They're underage. So they should need a parent's consent to go see a doctor or counselor or receive information based on things that might change them for the rest of their life. But we do not need to have school-sponsored and school-sanctioned sex clubs, period. So far, I have no problem with this bill. Wow, Zwiner said. So shocked. Wow, you hate-filled person. These clubs are the place where LGBTQ students feel safe and can build a social network. They can build a social network on any platform on the internet. Please, this is not 1982. This is not 1992. This is not even 2002. There's social networks everywhere for people of all walks of life. All right? She came out, of course, she's a member of the Alphabet Club herself. There's been a generational change since then. Yes, people are more comfortable with their identity now than ever, so they're not hiding it. All right? Leach countered that schools were not hypersexualized then the way they seem to be moving today. Yes, they are. They are hypersexualized today. Dallas Demmer called the bill bad policy. Clubs for LGBTQ parents or students are no more about sex than a 4-H club, ROTC, or the basketball team. Yes, they're based strictly on your sexual identity. So they're about sex. All right? They'd get together and watch movies and they'd color. They color? I mean, they color. What are they, kindergarten? They got crayons? Oh, God, they really need help. Oh my God. All right. It was about a kid who felt weird, who found her people. I felt weird. I was in the Dungeons and Dragons when I was like in grade school. I felt weird because, there's only 5 of us that liked it. We were nerds. In 1982, if you're in the Dungeons and Dragons, you usually get the shit kicked out of you. Anyways, so there we go. Parents, Bill of Rights. It goes on and goes on and goes on, but that's really the big thing. We're going to take, if you want to have a club in your school, it cannot be discriminatory or based on any type of identity, whether it's race, sex, or gender, or whatever political. It just can't be. You cannot be discriminatory. I think that's great. So far, I have no problem. Yeah. God bless Texas. So, all right. So, speaking of gay. Remember our boxer from the Olympics? That tested as a man? They had the chromosome test, but apparently she's 1 in 7 billion, even though there's only like 6 billion people in the world. She's 1 in 7 billion people to have this rare disorder that gives you both X and Y chromosomes during the test. Well, she's been banned. She's been banned from the next boxing tournament, international boxing tournament. And now before she competes or he competes or they compete or whatever that is, competes, they've got to take a real test. Real test now for all athletes before the Olympics. I just think that this is going to get interesting, folks. Yep. Here she is winning her gold medal. Yep. And this person was disqualified before that Olympics in Paris for failing the chromosome test and saying, well, you have male chromosomes and elevated levels of testosterone. But yet there's this, okay, I'm going to get to the disorder's name because this is definitely made up, folks. All right, let's see here. Yes, rare genetic trait called 5-alpha reductase type 2 deficiency, intersex condition. Okay, sure. All right. So they've been banned from the next sport. They have to, if they want to be in the Olympics this year in the United States, which they do, they've got to pass the test. And now from boxing and going forward, international boxing, they got to pass the test. I think it's only fair. You have enough men trying to compete in women's sports right now. Okay, swimming's one thing, all that, right? This is boxing, okay? Literally, you have a biological male beating the shit out of a woman. Anyone who argues that that's okay, you're fucked up in the head. And your opinion is not valid. It really isn't. Normally, I'll tell you your opinion is valid. But if you're a biological male and you are in the ring with a biological female and you're wailing away on her, you're just a domestic abuser. That's called assault. So we got that. That has finally come full circle now. Okay. All right, we'll do Mexico or Supreme Court. Let's do Supreme Court. Okay, so this sounds awful. If you're a Second Amendment advocate, this sounds awful. The Supreme Court has ruled against, or they haven't ruled against. They say they will not review. They will not hear the case on bans on assault-style weapons and high-capacity magazines from Maryland and Rhode Island. So Maryland and Rhode Island, their legislation has banned high-powered assault rifles, or assault-style weapons, and they banned high-capacity magazines. Second Amendment advocates sued. They brought it to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court said, no, we're not going to listen to that. We're not going to hear that case. It remains what Maryland and it remains what Rhode Island said it would be. And so it's being hailed as a win. It's being hailed as a win for gun control advocates. Unfortunately, gun control advocates seem not to read. Okay? And what do I mean by that? If you actually read the decision, the opinion of the court, because even when they say we're not going to view this case, they actually talk about why a lot of the times. So Justices Thomas and Alito, the two conservatives, most conservatives on the bench, said they wanted to hear this case because, of course, they would overturn it. Fine. The rest of the crew said no. Kavanaugh said no, but he wrote something. And I think this is where you have to understand where Kavanaugh and Gorsuch and Amy Coney Barrett are going to fall. It's not that they don't want to hear these cases. The problem is there's 50 states, and there's probably another 20 cases just like this. And they're waiting for all of those cases to be resolved to the point where all of them, let's say there's 25 liberal states out there that are banning or passing the same type of assault weapon bans and high-capacity magazine bans. Say there's 25, they're waiting, and this is what Kavanaugh said, we're going to wait. I'd rather wait until all of those are ready to go so we can just decide them all in one fell swoop instead of taking one state by one state by one state by one, because that's 25 cases to hear. No, Kavanaugh's like, let's just do this all together. We're going to do mass market bulk judiciary, which I think would really, if you're a gun control advocate and you're sitting there going, yay, Supreme Court, yay, they're gonna let Canada. No, they're not letting. This is a temporary win. And I'll tell you right now, you're not, in the end, once all 25 or however many there are ready to go, the Supreme Court will say, bring them on, folks. Let's hear the oral arguments. And then you're going to get a 5-4 decision, a 6-3 decision in favor of gun rights activists or advocates, in favor of Second Amendment advocates, saying, you cannot ban these weapons. You cannot ban these high-capacity magazines because, unfortunately, they fall under the protection of the Second Amendment. You may agree with that, you may disagree with that, but that's what's going to happen, folks. So, to all my Second Amendment friends out there that are feeling a little sad or maybe a little depressed about this, don't worry. You just got to read between the lines, folks. You just got to read between the lines and listen to what the justices are actually saying. Let's see here. Justice Brett Kavanaugh noted that challenges to other bans on assault-style weapons are being considered in lower courts, and, quote, in my view, this court should and presumably will address the AR-15 issue soon. Basically, that's him just saying, let's let all these cases go. Now, Gorsuch also had something to say. Alito, Gorsuch, and Thomas are three real conservatives. Quote, I would not wait to decide whether the government can ban the most popular rifle in America, Thomas wrote in his dissent. That question is of critical importance to tens of millions of law-abiding AR-15 owners throughout the country. So you can tell you've already got three. You got three justices that are waiting to hear these cases. Kavanaugh is just trying to be a little tempered because he's seeing a little bit more down the road. Thomas wants to give immediate relief to the citizens who are being negatively affected and having their rights taken away. Again, I think both of them are correct, but I think in the long run, you let Kavanaugh's logic flow here and you have one big deciding court case and you're good. So AR-15 owners out there, don't worry. Don't worry, folks. You're going to be okay. All right, here we go. Last but not least. The mysterious drop in fentanyl seizures on the U.S.-Mexican border. No shit. How do people actually write these headlines and then expect people with a brain like me to read them and go, what do you mean mysterious? We have a new president who said, fucking secure the border. And now the cartels are like, I guess we can't get our shit through, or we have to figure out another way to get it through. And then you have China. We put all these tariffs on them and said, stop giving them all the raw chemicals to make the fentanyl. And China went, yeah, that's probably a good idea now. All right, we've had our fun. And they stopped supplying a lot of those chemicals, which did, again, if you read this whole Washington Post thing, it'll tell you way down at the bottom of the article that China has actually restricted the sending of these chemicals to Mexico to the cartels so they can make the fentanyl. So no wonder it's not a mysterious drop. It's a drop because actually the administration said, stop doing this shit. And here are the consequences if you stop doing this shit. But also, hey, just so you know, there's a war in the cartel. The Sinaloa cartel, the largest cartel out there, there's a civil war going on. Hundreds of innocent people are getting killed every month just in the crossfire of these two cartels that are trying to, these two factions of the cartel trying to take control. One of them by the son of El Chapo Juan Guzman, who's in jail right now. And the other by just someone who's just a rival within the cartel that wants to seize control. Well, that makes production hard too. Sure, no problem. The military along the border probably gives them pause. I would think that, the people that are going to, say, hey, I'm used to just walking across the border when Uncle Joe was president. Now when they go to cross that same border, they see a fucking bazooka pointed their way. They're like, yeah, I got to find another way around. And maybe they haven't found out. Maybe they haven't finished digging the tunnels they need to dig. You never know. Yeah, China's saying, shiz, I don't like these tariffs. Yeah, we'll stop sending the chemicals. We'll slow that down. We'll crack down on that. So now there's not as much fentanyl being made. There's no mystery in this, folks. It's called proactive. It's called action. It's called doing something decisive. It's called making a decision. It's the difference between the 4 years before Trump and now Trump. That's it. Like or hate everything else that he's doing, he's literally stopped fentanyl fentanyl seizures are down almost half. Why? Because they're not bringing that much over the border or trying to, because they just, one, can't make it, two, are afraid to. So, and they all know that, hey, you're bringing fentanyl. Oh, you're a member of the Sinaloa cartel. You're a terrorist. You're going to Guantanamo Bay. You don't think that message has gotten out? You don't think that that's actually clued some people in? I mean, they may be drug dealers. They're not stupid. You don't become rich like that by being stupid. You do listen to the news. You do understand. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go to Mexican jail and then I'll be out in a week, because that's the way it works. No, you get caught. Oh, you remember the cartel that we designated as a terrorist organization? Yeah, welcome to Cuba, bitch. That's not where you want to go. Not where you want to go. But the article goes, and you literally have to read this whole article to get down to the bottom. And you go, oh, yes, there's a war with the cartel. Yes. Yes, we got all this. And then finally, China's cracking down. Why? Because the president told them to. The president threatened them with tariffs. All right, remember that? There was a reason. It wasn't just economics. He threatened tariffs. You actually read the executive order. It's all about the fentanyl, because he's tired of Americans being killed in large numbers. So you have stupid stories like this. Folks, that policy's working. That policy's working. You can not like it. You can like it. It's working. As Ric Flair said, you can, whether you like it or whether you don't like it, learn to love it, because it is the way it is. It's working. So with that, this has been awesome. This is my first day back since being sick. Like I said, I've been gone for about a week, and it was tough. And I'm just happy to be back and be able to make content again and have some fun talking about politics, pop culture. I know that my views piss off some people. That's okay. I'm used to it. So, but it is my opinion. And if you want to share your opinion, share it in the comment section below. Let me know what you think. But with that, I'm going to go ahead and get on out of here. I have been your Reluctant Gringo, and still am, from south of the border. Salut, a huevo. Have a great week, everybody. I'll see you all Wednesday.
Are you a racist? Do you hate Mexicans?
So long, gay boys!